wasn't born bad. I'm trying to tell you, man, they lied. They lied so bad to you all.
You killed 7 men, 7 strangers. Does that not make you a serial killer?
So I didn't kill them every day, did I?
Welcome to Very Scary People. I'm Donnie Wahlberg. Between December of 1989 and November 1990, Aileen Wuornos unleashed her rage on the state of Florida, brutally gunning down 7 victims. Wuornos' childhood was the stuff of nightmares. Her father was a convicted sex offender. She was abandoned by her mother as an infant, and she was raised by her grandparents in an allegedly abusive household. Then at age 12, she was raped. Wuornos said she was not born bad. Was this hellish start to her life the reason she turned into an angry, violent killer? How would this cold-blooded murderer finally be stopped? This is part 2 of Monster Made.
How would you describe Aileen Wuornos?
She is probably as cold a person as I've ever met.
Aileen Wuornos was living in Florida.
She was making her living as a prostitute on the interstate exits and entrances in Central Florida.
She was in a relationship with Tyra Moore.
And she falls in love. Then, 1989, something changed, something happened. She became a killer.
Aileen Wuornos' first victim was Richard Mowry.
Then David Spears, Charles Carskaddon,
Peter Sims,
Troy Burris,
Richard Humphreys,
and Walter Gino Antonio.
The victims were all white and older males.
Bodies were found on rural roads near the interstate.
She actually drove away every victim's vehicle from the crime scene.
There were also additional items taken, and those would be her trophies and her souvenirs.
It just took a long time to link these cases together.
I can remember sitting there thinking, how come we're not coming up with anything?
They were needing a break, and they didn't realize that the break had already happened back in July.
Back in July, there was a car crash in Orange Springs, Florida. That involved a car that belonged to Peter Sims.
Aileen and Tyra were on their way over to Daytona Beach. Car goes off the side of the road.
She told Tyra that they needed to leave immediately because this was a dead man's car.
So the witnesses see this car crash.
And 2 composites were generated.
So let's put it out there.
Once she made her second kill, her third kill, her fourth kill, Aileen felt more confident. She feels comfortable she's doing enough to get away with the crimes. But when we released the composites and when we put that out there, I believe that came as quite a shock to her.
When the sketches came out, Tyra freaked.
I had heard on the news that Ocala police or something was looking for 2 female hitchhikers that were last seen by a victim's car.
She saw the sketches, and it actually looked more like Tyra than it did look like Aileen.
Is there any particular reason why you didn't come forward at that time to the authorities?
I was just scared. That's all.
Were you afraid of leaving?
Yeah.
Tyra Moore has stated that Aileen told her what she had done. Now, Tyra says she was never at the scenes, at the killings.
In a certain sense, I think Ty was like a mafia wife. She knew, but she didn't want to know what was going on. I mean, all the evidence was there, but as long as it was not spoken out loud, then we'll just go along with how things are. And that worked okay up until the point to where Ty recognized herself in a sketch along with Lee, and that was one step too far.
And that's when they split up.
I've had it, and I've been wanting to leave her for a long time, and I just That's it.
So Tyra went back up north where she had family.
And now Aileen is without the love of her life to run on her own. But the noose is getting closer.
Police are looking for these two women for questioning.
Meanwhile, those sketches are bringing in hundreds of tips, hundreds of phone calls.
The tips that came in this investigation began to focus over in Daytona. And knowing that we had a list of property from these victims that was missing, we then began a very intensive effort to visit pawn shops to see if we could identify any of these items that could have been pawned. And it was during that investigation that some items had been located at a pawn shop.
There was a radar detector and a camera that had been stolen out of Richard Mallory's vehicle when he was murdered.
And they find a pawn ticket for Richard Mallory's radar detector and his camera. And there's a thumbprint.
Florida back then had just passed a law as to where any pawn transaction had to bear a fingerprint of the person making the transaction.
So there was a thumbprint and the name Canny Green that they thought this was an alias and wanted to see if they could find out the actual name. On December 21st, 1990, investigators came to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Crime Lab. We had run it through the automated fingerprint identification system, and we did not make a match. So I had told the investigators that we could do a manual search, looking at cards one by one to see if we could find her. It's like a 1 in a billion chances, but we would try. We were thinking we were gonna have to physically look at every single thumbprint on every single card. I took out one stack and started flipping through it, and in less than 15 minutes, we identified her. We were screaming and hollering and jumping up and down because we still could not believe we had done this. Then the investigators were able to pull a mugshot, and then they had a face to go with the name. But the problem was they didn't know where she was.
They had her in sight.
All of a sudden, she would hit me with the pool stick and just go off.
Once the name of Aileen Carol Wuornos was laid on our plate and the leads that she was spending her time in Daytona, that's where our investigative efforts were shifted.
So what we did is we took as many undercover officers as we could get together from all the different agencies around Central Florida and went over to Daytona Beach and saturated the locations we felt they might hang out at.
We would actually literally go from bar to bar to bar to see if we could visually identify her.
One of the investigators from Citrus County pretty quickly ran into Aileen.
They had her in sight. They sent in 2 undercover cops who worked mainly drug cases, who looked like bikers, and bought her beers and hung out with her.
I guess the best way to describe her is she kind of like had a split personality. She'd be fine. We'd be shooting pool, drinking beer and laughing, having a good time. And all of a sudden, she would hit me with the pool stick and just go off. And you'd ask her, why'd you do that? And she'd say, hell, I don't know.
He wasn't asking her about murders or anything. He was playing pool with her. He was buying her cigarettes and just trying to get her to let her guard down a little bit and stall her long enough for us to put a plan together to be able to take her into custody.
There was a lot of intense discussion between law enforcement and prosecutors.
Cops want to get her off the street. They've ID'd her. They're pretty damn sure that she's a perpetrator. But the prosecution wants a nice, successful prosecution, and they don't feel like they have the evidence for it.
At that point, we had a lot of uncertainties.
But we were up against a fear that if we didn't stay on top of her and she got loose, that we'd have another dead body.
We'd have to do something.
There's not much evidence. So how do you get this person off the street before they kill again?
So a decision was made that night to go ahead and arrest her on the outstanding weapons charge.
We didn't know where she kept the gun. We didn't know how she'd react. We didn't know what she'd do. The plan was to have Mike walk her out front to have a cigarette. And that's what we did.
So they walk out of the bar towards his truck. Cops come up, they arrest him and her.
Our desire was to put her in a safe place and not risk someone else being murdered.
But when we took Aileen into custody, we did not have a prosecutable case at the time.
They don't have any chance at all. They had very little evidence, and they had no direct witnesses.
What happened at this point is we needed a miracle. And that miracle came in the form of Tyra Moore.
Lee, it sounds like you've been betrayed by everyone.
That's right, I was. That's why I don't care if I'm executed and leave this planet.
Eileen's now in jail, but they still don't have a case. The only way they can get her is by a confession. And they believe the only way they can get that confession is to put pressure on Tyra Moore.
Tyra and Lee had parted ways. Tyra had left and went to Pennsylvania to be with family and friends. And when Lee was arrested, a very concerted effort was made to locate Tyra Moore.
They realize that this is the love of Eileen's life, and they can use this as a pressure point.
We were able to locate Tyra up north.
The investigators came up with a plan in which Tyra was convinced that it would be in her best interest to cooperate.
The way we enlisted Ty Moore's help was to suggest the possibility that she could be arrested as an accessory after the fact for these homicides.
They said, if you agree to get a confession from Wuornos, you won't face prosecution.
And she flipped immediately on Lee.
She willingly agreed to come back to the state of Florida to cooperate in this investigation. She's actually housed in a motel in Daytona under the watchful eye of detectives.
She sent a note to Aileen in the Volusia County Jail and said, hey, I'm here in Daytona. The police are asking questions. Call me. And we had a recorded line set up, and we recorded somewhere around 13 or 14 phone calls between the girls.
Hello? Hi? Yes. Yes. Hi.
We wanted incriminating statements, declarations made by Lee Wuornos to Tyra that we could record. We actually had questions that were scripted out that we wanted Tyra to communicate to Lee Wuornos, which she did.
What the hell's going on, Lee? They've called. They've been up to my parents again. They've got my sister now asking her questions. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Huh. What are they asking your sister questions for?
I don't know. Lee, they're coming after me. I know they are. What?
I'm not going to let you go to jail.
You evidently don't love me anymore. You don't trust me or anything. I mean, you're going to let me get in trouble for something that I didn't do.
I said I'm not.
There is a lengthy, tear-filled, sobbing conversation in which Ty is imploring Lee to do the right thing.
And Aileen kept telling her, I will protect you, I will protect you.
She loved Ty with all her heart.
Why did you do this? I don't know.
It was emotional. In a way, it was just heartbreaking.
Aileen cared for this girl. She cared a lot about her. She wanted to protect her.
I'll probably never be able to do. Yes, I love you.
Maybe the only time she really found any solace in life was with this relationship with Tyra Moore. And sadly, it was used against her at the end.
Listen, quit crying, Liz.
I can't help it. I'm scared shitless.
I know. I love you a lot.
I don't know whether I should keep on living or if I should...
No, Ty, listen.
What if they don't believe me?
Tyra, listen.
What?
I'm not going to let you go to jail. Listen, if I have to confess, I will.
And it was that point, the wow moment, we knew we had the right person. Everything was now coming together.
If I have to confess everything just to keep you from getting in trouble, I will. Okay? Don't worry, okay? Okay. I love you. No. Don't do it now. Get it over with. Right this very moment? Yes. Get it over with. All right. All right. Okay, bye.
Aileen surprised me in her desire to protect Ty Moore, because you saw some humanity in her in that attempt to protect her lover. Aileen was a terrible person. She was a horrible person. She was a bad person. She was rotten from within her core. But even maybe in the most rotten, there are moments where there is some humanity left in that person's soul.
When Aileen finished talking to Tyra, she contacted one of the correction officers at the Volusia County Jail, and she told the officer, "I want to talk to the police."
She didn't come across as a monster or a killer during these conversations. It was just like you're talking to a normal person.
Ended up helping to lead to her downfall.
Welcome back to Very Scary People. When investigators arrested Aileen Wuornos in January 1991, they were certain she was the person who had killed at least 7 men across Florida. Detectives had convinced her girlfriend, Tyra Moore, to help them, but they didn't have the proof they needed to charge her with the murders. Yet.
After that telephone call, on January the 16th, Lee Wuornos tells corrections officers, "I need to speak with those detectives."
I was wondering, you okay?
I was just kind of sad.
How you doing?
Well, I came here to confess to you.
When Aileen came into the interview, I think her main goal at that point was to make sure she let us know that Tyra wasn't involved.
The reason I'm confessing is there's not another girl. There is no girl. She was not involved in any of this. She didn't know anything.
Okay, so then what you're telling us is you're voluntarily coming forward to talk to us now.
Yeah, to let you know that I'm the one that did the killing.
They didn't have a case until they had the confession, and she had just basically committed suicide to save Tyra.
I was just mad. The only reason I'm confessing to you is because I loved you so much.
The love that she had for Tyra was so intense and was so deep that she was going to confess to all 7 murders and to basically eliminate any accusations that could be focused on Tyra.
Tell them and hold you nothing but the truth, so help me God.
But she's going to be the victim when she gives the confession. So in her mind, I'm a good person. I'm confessing, but I had to do it.
I know what I did. I'm confessing what I did. Go ahead and confess the truth. I should have never done it. Most of the times I was drunk as hell.
She insisted during her confession that everything she did was to defend herself.
She thought they were going to attack her, or she felt threatened, and that's why she shot them.
They started to get rough with me or whatever. I just like focused on the fire and I don't. Because I thought to myself, why are you giving me such trouble for when I'm just trying to make my money and go.
She was claiming that in each case, she was the victim. She was picked up for sex. They were getting rough with her. You know, she was in fear of her life, and she had to kill him.
They would beat the out of me and probably found my gun and shot me, or beat the out of me and took off, or beat and rape me and take off.
As time went on, she changed it to she robbed them. She wanted to kill them so they couldn't identify her. So trying to get something from her perspective was kind of difficult at times because it changed so much.
So was it your intent during each of these times to kill this person so that they couldn't come back at you later?
Because I didn't know they had a gun or anything. Once I got my gun, I was like, hey man, I've got to shoot you because I think you're going to kill me. See?
What made you take property, a lot of property or a little property from some and not from others?
Yeah, I think I took them just for the fact that you bastards, you were going to hurt me, you were going to kill me, you were going to rape me, or whatever you were going to do.
Like final revenge?
Yeah.
Aileen stuck with the idea or excuse that all of her victims raped or attempted to rape her, even though circumstances didn't hold up with that.
When we look at the evidence, it doesn't support that. Take, for example, the case involving Mr. Humphreys. She claimed that she was defending herself.
He grabbed my arm, he pulled me out of the front seat.
But the injuries that he had were not consistent with that confession. The locations of the shots were indicative of a defensive position. The first shot went through his right wrist, as if he had his arms up. The second shot was in the right side of his torso, which would mean he was starting to turn to run away. The next shot was to the back of the head. When he fell down, the gun was put right up to his body, and we had a close contact wound to the chest. So those things were indicative of this predator going after him.
Lee didn't think any of that thing through. It didn't matter. She had made up her mind that was her story and she was going to stick with it.
Maybe it was self-defense. Maybe it was stupid, just off the wall shoot. Maybe I could have got away with it. I feel guilty. I am guilty. I'm willing to pay punishment for that.
When you think of this monster or this killer, she didn't come across as a monster or a killer during these conversations. It was just like you're talking to a normal person.
If it feels good, do it. If it feels great, do it again. Yeah, that's fine sexually, but don't go around telling somebody unless you have to.
I mean, to think that this person just killed 7 people and she's sitting here talking back and forth with detectives, just like a run-of-the-mill conversation.
Wow. I'll be back.
We take great pleasure in announcing to the successful conclusion of a 13-month-long investigation. The persons charged in the homicides is identified as Aileen Carol Wuornos.
Based on that confession, we were able to recover the gun where she had discarded it. And we recovered a small briefcase that Aileen carried around with her. When we searched this, we found a receipt for a mini warehouse in Daytona Beach.
That really was the coup de grace.
We recovered her souvenirs from 6 of the 7 victims.
That's important evidence because it links her directly to their murder.
It ended up helping to lead to her downfall.
And now we started putting these things together, and as you look at the cumulative effect of it, you have a prosecutable case.
He said, you're gonna do everything I tell you to do. If you don't, I'll kill you right now. Whipped a cord around my neck.
Aileen Wuornos claims that she was brutally raped by him, and when given the chance to break free, have shot him to death.
There is the possibility she's telling the truth.
Those men were shot, just shot, and so boom, boom, boom. You know, they weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz, you know. All they were was shot and left. If it was a horrendous crime, why didn't I shoot them between the eyes, cut their penis off, stick it in their mouth, you know, do all kinds of gross stuff? All they were was shot and left.
Once it became clear that Aileen Wuornos was the one responsible for multiple murders and that Florida had a female serial killer on its hands, the media coverage exploded.
Aileen Wuornos faces 5 murder charges.
In part because it's so very rare There are very few female serial killers in general, and even fewer who commit their crimes in this brutal fashion.
Understand what you're saying. Are you telling me I can't have these lawyers to run? No, ma'am.
You know, you had the perfect storm. You had death, you had sex, money in the form of robbery. So, I mean, what else do you need to make a story?
I'm fear of my life in Volusia County Jail. I'm tired of them trying to kill me there.
Aileen Wuornos' trial was exceptional in several matters.
There was a woman, Arlene Praley. She was a Christian who believed that it was her mission to help this woman in her time of need.
I want them to treat her like she's innocent until she's proven guilty. That's what I want. I want them to treat her like a human being.
One of the things Arlene Praley does is she legally adopts Aileen so that she has some connection that the court has to respect.
Wuornos occasionally smiled and glanced to the back of the room, mouthing the words, "I love you," to her adoptive mother, Arlene Prowl.
And this was just part of the insanity. You know, Eileen's 34 years old and now she's being adopted.
Aileen Wuornos showed little emotion as she was led into the courthouse in DeLand, Florida, as jury selection began Monday.
The first case brought against Aileen Wuornos for murder was the death of Richard Mallory.
She killed him out of greed. She was no longer satisfied with $10 or $20 or $40. She wanted all.
You had a mountain of evidence against her because you did have the police work that was involved. You had the confessions. You had the woman she was in a relationship with who became a state's witness.
I'm not gonna let you get in trouble. That's good.
Wuornos alternately laughed and wept as the tapes of her conversation with her former girlfriend, Tyria Moore, were made public.
I tell you what, I would die for you. Would you? Yes, I would.
But one of the most devastating parts of the trial is when prosecution brings in Tyria Moore. Tyra wouldn't even look at Aileen, but you could tell just by watching Aileen, it was breaking her heart.
Time after time after time, she was raped. Time after time after time, she was beaten up. Finally, she armed herself.
Aileen Wuornos claims that she wasn't driven to kill Richard Mallory. She claims that she was brutally raped by him, and when given the chance to break free of that incident, she shot him to death.
She defended herself.
When the defense made the decision to call Aileen Wuornos to testify, it was electric in the courtroom.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm really nervous, and I'm really getting pretty shy and embarrassed, and this is hard for me, so just bear with me.
Aileen Wuornos' testimony was effectively they were going to engage in sex, but that he immediately became very violent.
I saw him coming toward me, and then I was going to turn to look at him, and before I even got a chance to turn and look at him, he whipped a cord around my neck. He said, "You're going to do everything I tell you to do, and if you don't, I'll kill you right now." I said, "Don't come out. Don't come near me. I'll have to shoot you again," or something like that. "Don't make me have to shoot you again," or something like that. He just started coming at me, and I shot. And I don't know where I shot him. I just shot him, and he fell on the ground.
There is the possibility she's telling the truth. After trial, we find out this amazing information about Richard Mallory.
Mallory had been convicted of a burglary with intent to commit sexual assault. And it was deemed a psychological problem. He went into some type of mental institute and served some time there. So there was some speculation that maybe he did get violent with her.
I think it's possible. And I think it's possible that this was a trigger for the subsequent events.
Maybe Mr. Mallory did get rough with her, and she retaliated. Maybe she was trying to kill Richard Mallory again and again. And this is where the profile comes in, where the men were similar age, race. So it might be an internal mechanism that Aileen has where she's lashing out to kill these men.
Was her story believable? It wasn't unbelievable if you separated it out by itself. But there was no evidence to support Aileen Wuornos' claim. In fact, when Tyra Moore testified, she saw no injuries whatsoever when Aileen Wuornos came back to their hotel with Richard Mallory's car.
Did she ever advise you that the man she had shot had done anything to her?
No, she didn't.
The 7 women and 5 men deliberated for 91 minutes and then returned a verdict everyone expected. Everyone except Aileen Wuornos.
State of Florida versus Aileen Carol Wuornos. We, the jury, find the defendant, Aileen Carol Wuornos, guilty of a first-degree premeditated murder.
When she was found guilty, she was shocked. She never thought she'd be found guilty.
Lee went off on that jury, and she didn't give a damn, and she just vented.
She turns around, her eyes are wild, says,
I was raped. I hope you get raped. Scumbags up there.
I think there was the violent Aileen who did the murders. I think there was the child of rage Aileen, and I think there was the lover of Tyra. I think when she was found guilty, the raging came out. And you could see it in her eyes. Only Manson scared me more.
I have been labeled a serial killer, and I am no serial killer. What I was a prostitute. I was not out there to hurt anyone. I had no intentions of hurting anyone. What I did was what anybody else would do. I defended myself, which everybody has the right to defend themselves.
The jury voted 12-0 for the death penalty.
Until by warrant of the governor of the state of Florida, you, Aileen Carol Wuornos, be electrocuted until you are dead.
Coming up, America's first female serial killer. In just about 13 hours, she's scheduled to die.
I was among the journalists who's chosen to go in. Wuornos gave a statement that people are still trying to figure out to this day.
Maybe you were just born bad.
Boy, I don't know about you. I'm telling you, man. No, I wasn't born bad. You guys got it. See, I'm trying to tell you, man, they lied. They lied so bad to you all.
You killed 7 men, 7 strangers. Does that not make you a serial killer?
So I didn't kill them every day, did I?
After Miss Wuornos was tried and convicted by a jury of murder and sentenced to death, she, through her counsel, decided to enter pleas of guilty to the remaining 5 homicides that she was charged with.
I do not want a trial.
I don't know that she wanted to sit in a courtroom in front of different sets of jurors and hear them find her guilty and then sentence her to death. I think in her mind, she was speeding up the process, and it was an inevitable conclusion that she was just bringing forward.
She was sentenced to death for each of the crimes that she had committed and admitted to.
And it just added to more death sentences on top of death sentences for Wuornos, to the point where she ended up with 6 before it was all said and done.
When the judge passed sentence, she started cursing him out and giving him the finger, and she was just out of control.
Your wife and kids get raped. There's no sense in having me tormented for the rest of my life when I don't deserve to be tormented. I did what anybody else would do. And so there's only clemency or the chair. You make your pick, people, because that's the only way it's going to be.
I represented Aileen Wuornos for only 3 months, from June of 2002 through September of 2002. She felt that people were tampering with her food, people were doing things in her jail cell that were designed to send radio waves through her brain.
I'm so sick of hearing that she's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth, and I'll take a polygraph on every single word on those pages.
Wuornos had real contempt for the world and at some point had contempt for life itself. And she decided she had it. And she did not want to be on death row anymore. She wanted to be executed.
Eileen's claim of self-defense, she renounced that story. She said that none of these men did anything wrong, that none of them tried to assault her or attack her, and that her stories of self-defense had all been lies.
I killed those men. I robbed them, and I killed them as cold as ice. And I'd do it again, too.
Lee wanted to have control over the situation, and I'm going to die, and I'm choosing to die. You know, it's my choice, not yours.
But there's no chance in keeping me alive or anything, because I kill again. I have hate crawling through my system.
Ultimately, Governor Bush had her evaluated by 3 doctors. Those doctors found that she was competent for the execution.
Her appeals have been exhausted. She wants to meet her creator.
By the age of 15, Aileen Wuornos was a prostitute. By the age of 35, she was a killer. But Aileen Wuornos won't be making it to 55. At 9:30 tomorrow morning, the state of Florida is scheduled to give Wuornos a lethal injection.
By tomorrow, I will know there will be no more pictures, no more books, no more movies. I won't have to see her wicked face again.
I wanted to get in touch with my friend Aileen because she was my friend. I didn't care what she did. I knew she was gonna pay the price for it, rightfully so. But it's got nothing to do with our friendship. Well, why wouldn't I be the best friend I could possibly be for the rest of the years of her life? Our last night visiting, I took her barbecue chips, I think 2 candy bars. She was totally happy. She was so happy that night. We laughed the whole damn time. Even the guards kept looking at us. Like, why are they laughing? The girl's being executed. There was nothing sad. What would be the point?
She requested us to wake her up at 5:30, which we did. Her attitude is pretty calm. She's not quite as talkative as she has been in the past.
I was among the journalists who was chosen to go in. The curtain opened, and there was Aileen Wuornos on a gurney. Wuornos gave a statement that people are still trying to figure out to this day.
She said, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, on the big mothership, and all, I'll be back, I'll be back."
She was calm. It was clinical. It was almost like watching someone in the emergency room getting an IV.
Her eyes slowly closed. Her skin started to turn sort of grayish. And that went on for 17 minutes before she was officially pronounced dead.
There are a lot of people that sympathize with Aileen. I feel that a lot of it is they don't know the facts. They don't know what really happened. They hear what came out through the media, through movies. The most well-known one was Monster. And that kind of made her look like a victim.
I was raped and beat to and was gonna get killed. But I didn't want to lose. And all I could think about was how for the rest of your life you think I'd stood you up.
It's like nobody really knew where this woman came from and to end up the way she did.
There's no question that she had a horrible life, and it clearly affected her in the worst possible way. And she paid the ultimate price for that.
But There's a lot of people that have not had a fair shake in the system in this country, and they haven't turned into serial killers.
The fact that Aileen Wuornos received sympathy is simply because she was a woman. If she had been a man, you and I would not be talking about this case.
It's a nightmare, a horrible nightmare that'll never go away. It'll never go away. I mean, she was actually an evil woman.
I never saw her be remorseful to anyone, and I think all of that went away when Tyra left. Her only hope that she ever had in her entire life was Tyra. And even after the betrayal she felt, she still loved her because it was unconditional. And I think to the day she died, she felt that way towards Tyra.
Despite all of that, despite how much more meant to putting her away, she was still the one that Wuornos loved and never stopped loving till her death.
Do you want to die? You want to?
Oh man, if I was to leave this planet, it wouldn't be no big deal to me, because this is a wicked, wicked world. Wicked world.
The investigation that led to the capture of Aileen Wuornos was a collaboration of 5 different county sheriff's offices and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. It took 13 months and cost $150,000. But in the end, they got her. After her execution, Wuornos was cremated and her remains handed over to childhood friend Don Botkins. Per Eileen's request, her ashes were spread underneath a tree on Don's property in rural Michigan, so that, as Don says, she could be near someone who loved her. Thanks for watching Very Scary People. Good night.